Good morning. Welcome, committee members and guests. My name is Shanine Coates, and I'm the Director of the Curriculum Frameworks and Instructional Resources Division. We are excited to be here with you virtually to conduct the fourth meeting of the Mathematics Curriculum Framework and Evaluation Criteria Committee. Denise, will you please conduct the roll call?
Eris Spiegler.
I'm here.
Lena Bradshaw.
Here.
Aaron Frazier.
Here.
Lori Firemuth.
Here.
Lori Fury. Lori Fury.
Here.
Lindsay Gatfield.
Here.
Crystal Gomez.
Here.
Janet Hollister.
Here.
Lisa Hogerman.
Here.
Stephanie Holloway.
Here.
Andrew Huffaker.
Here.
Janie Kim.
Here.
Rebecca Pariso.
Here.
Stina Rubalcava.
Here.
Theodore Sagoon.
Here.
Bernadette Salgarino.
Here.
Cole Sampson.
Here.
Rosa Saratore.
Here.
Diane Wilson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Committee members, thank you for all of the work you have done to get ready for today's meeting. We know that you had 4 chapters to read, 3 of them new chapters, plus chapter 3, which was a second read for you and is on the schedule for tomorrow's agenda. We are also excited that our colleagues in the Special Education Division will be presenting for us this morning. And we are equally pleased that our colleagues from the Sacramento County Office of Education will join us tomorrow for a brief presentation on the work they are doing as part of the Distance Learning Guidance Grant that they have received. As you know, we have another packed meeting ahead of us today and tomorrow. We will once again have our small group breakout times, facilitated discussions intended to help you have richer and more robust discussion on items that require that deeper deliberation. We will provide more information on this once we get into our small group sessions. At this time, I would also like to thank and acknowledge our State Board of Education Liaison Board Member Patricia Rucker and staff Pam Castleman. Thank you both for joining us. I would also like to acknowledge Instructional Quality Committee members Alma Delia Renteria and Pam Williamson, who will be absorbing the work of the committee over the next 2 days. I would also like to thank you. I'm going to now turn it over to Constantino Silva, Education Administrator for the Curriculum Frameworks Unit, who will take us through the meeting norms and today's agenda.
Good morning. Thank you, Director Coates. Good morning, committee members. It is indeed a pleasure to see everyone again. Before we begin, there we are. Before we begin, I would like to go over a few reminders for our virtual meeting. We will be using the same norms and Zoom features we have used previously. First, of course, the all-important mute button. It is located on the menu bar at the bottom left of your screen. The menu bar will appear as soon as you hover over the Zoom window. Click the mute button to mute and unmute yourself throughout the meeting, and please ensure that your microphone is off when you are not speaking. That will help cut down any unnecessary background and noise. Next to the microphone, you'll find the caret or circumflex symbol. It looks like the tip of an arrow pointing up. If you are having any issues with your audio connection, this gives you other audio connection options. Finally, the extremely important reactions buttons. These are found clicking the participants button. We will discuss the 4 primary Zoom reactions we will use throughout the meeting in a few moments. For now, I would simply like to point out that this is also where you're going to find the raise hand feature, which you will use when you wish to speak. When you have your hand raised, the co-chairs will call on you, at which time you will unmute yourself and provide your comment. A quick note about the chat feature, just as we have done in our previous virtual meetings, it has been turned off for this meeting due to Bagley-Keene. The restrictions regarding public access requires that the public have access to all of the discussions of the committee, so therefore there will be no chat. I will now go over the agenda for today. As Director Coates mentioned, we have a very packed agenda, and I will review each one of the items on the agenda. First, we'll discuss in just a moment our norms and procedures for the virtual meeting. Then Director Coates would like to make some comments, some additional comments. Following her comments, there will be a presentation from our colleagues in the Special Education Division, considerations for students with disabilities in mathematics instruction. After that, we'll hear from our framework writers about the chapters you are reviewing for this meeting and the work they have done to prepare the chapters. After that, we will review the process we will use in the small breakouts, and we will also discuss how the public may attend and observe the breakout sessions where the committee will be conducting some of its work. We will then go into the small groups and begin the first chapter of the day, Chapter 6, grades TK through 5. We will wrap up the small group work and break for lunch. After lunch, our co-chairs have prepared a brief community building activity. Following that, we'll have the Chapter 6 whole group discussion facilitated by the co-chairs. And after that, we will take a break and go into the small group session for Chapter 7, grades 6 through 8. When we return to whole group, after that, we will have public comment, and then we will break and have the whole group discussion for Chapter 7. And that will bring us to the end of the day, at which time we will review our work for tomorrow and adjourn. But just finally, a brief note about flexibility in our schedule. We will make changes as needed throughout the day based on the actual time required to complete the various tasks. And our co-chairs will also use discretion during whole group discussion to move items as needed. Are there any questions about our agenda? Okay, a brief note about our meeting materials. You have received, along with, of course, the meeting agenda, you received the draft chapters for this meeting, 3, 6, 7, and 10. You also received the State Board of Education revised schedule of significant events, the guidelines for the revision of the math framework, and in the last couple days, we've uploaded as well some materials given to us by our colleagues in the Special Education Division, and 3 documents titled Common Core Essential Elements, Alternate Achievement Descriptors. And Dr. Birch, our presenter this morning, he will be referencing some information from those documents. And finally, you also received a total of 4 public comment submissions that we received since the last meeting. Most of them came in over the last day or so, so those have been uploaded to the public comment folder in the box link that you received as well. Finally, just a note for anyone who does not already have the draft chapters, and would like to access them, you may write the address above, the math framework address that you see on the screen. I can give you a quick moment to take a picture of that address so that you can follow up with us, and we will gladly send you the link to the materials. Okay. A brief note about public comment, which is scheduled at 3:45 this afternoon and at 2:40 tomorrow afternoon. Members of the public can view the whole group discussions via the CDE webcast and will be able to access the small groups via Zoom. However, public comment will take place via the phone line listed on this slide. We will project the slide again at public comment time. Additionally, if you wish to submit written comments, please use the Math Framework mailbox. The address is on the screen. Comments received will be provided to the CFCC members and made available to the public, but they will not be read aloud. And finally, just a comment on our norms for our virtual meetings. They are similar to what we have used before, but I will review them once again. We request that you are present and focused during the meeting, and that you keep your camera turned on while you are engaged in the meeting. If your camera is not turned on, we will assume that you are away. We request that you monitor your airtime. A good rule of thumb that we've requested you use is 3 before me. If you'll recall, what this means is that if you've already spoken once, allow at least 3 other people the opportunity to speak before requesting to speak again. Again, when not speaking, please leave your microphone muted to alleviate background noise and feedback. Then when voting, please do not remove your vote. Our staff will clear the votes after they have been counted. More on the voting later this morning. And finally, please pay attention to your background and lighting. Bright lights or windows behind you will cause you to be less visible. If you have a bright window or light behind you, we recommend that you increase the lighting in front of you so that you do not appear as a silhouette. Are there any comments or questions about our meeting norms? We'll review our procedures for the small breakouts later this morning. Okay, I will now turn it back over to Director Coates.
Thank you, Constantino. So, as we stated, our goal for this meeting is to help you carry out your work in the most efficient and effective manner possible. And so with this in mind, once again, we requested that you provided us with your prioritized comments. And this allowed us to prepare the working consensus documents that you will be using throughout the meeting. The process we have set up for your discussions is intended to allow you to spend more time on those items you collectively wish to discuss further, while at the same time helping you to identify the comments you agree either definitely should go to the writers or definitely should not go to the writers. Again, our aim is that this process will amplify your most important or critical comments and ensure the writers receive from you your highest priority recommendations, while at the same time keeping you from becoming bogged down in discussions that are not as critical to the committee. Please remember that our time is limited, so we will assist in ensuring that the meeting sessions are carried out according to schedule so that you can conclude your work on each chapter and move your highest priority recommendations to the writers. For the first time, you will be doing a second read of a chapter you have previously reviewed and have provided feedback to the writers on, and that's Chapter 3, Number Sense. You will notice significant differences in this chapter as a result of your previous recommendations. However, we feel strongly that both you and the public should see this chapter again so that you may continue shaping and refining the guidance contained in the chapter. Further, we are asking that as part of a second read, you delve deeper into how the chapter addresses the State Board of Education's guidelines for the revision of the math framework. We ask you to use the lens of the guidelines in preparing your recommendations for the review of this chapter. You may have spent more time, quote unquote, in the weeds this time, and that is what we wanted you to do for this second read. You will see this chapter for a third time at one of our 2 December meetings. to highlight just a few of the State Board of Education guidelines. 1G, the framework shall support a progression of learning from transitional kindergarten through grade 12 that ensures all students can achieve college and career readiness. The framework shall provide guidance to help ensure equitable access to high-quality mathematics instruction for all elementary, middle, and high school students in California. 2D, explicitly provide examples of concrete, representational, and abstract models at each grade level. 2G, explicitly provide strategies related to those included in the California Department of Education resources, including the English Learner Roadmap, the English Language Arts English Language Development Framework, the California English Language Development Standards, and Educating for Global Competency to support guidance and usability of the mathematics framework. Guideline 3A3, guidelines to support the integration of the principles of universal design for learning in first instruction for all students, including multiple means of representation, multiple means of expression, and multiple means of engagement. Guideline 3A4, resources that illustrate the connection between mathematics and other academic disciplines and the ways they support one another. Examples given are career technical education pathways, college and career readiness, computer science, and next generation science standards. And Guideline 3A6, guidance on how to support students with gaps in their mathematical knowledge. We mentioned at our last meeting as well that we were looking at the possibility of adding more meetings in order to provide you additional time to deliberate edits and recommendations. And so the October 19th through 20 and the December 2nd meeting have been added to our schedule. The October meeting is going to allow us to bring additional chapters to you for second read reviews. And the additional December meeting will allow us more time for the final review of all the draft framework chapters. And finally, I would just like to mention how appreciative we are that we have had so much participation from members of the public, even as we have transitioned to the virtual meeting platform. A heartfelt thank you from all of you for your concern for math instruction in our state. Many of you have provided public comments for the CFCC's review and deliberation, either written, oral, or both. Your participation is essential to this process, and we thank you for your valuable contributions. At this time, we have our content presentation for this meeting. The guidelines for the revision of the math framework, as I noted earlier, call for guidance that addresses the unique needs of, among other groups, students with disabilities. With this in mind, joining us this morning are our partners from the Special Education Division. John Birch, Education Administrator in the Focused Monitoring and Technical Assistance Unit. Dr. Birch will discuss important considerations for students with disabilities in math instruction. Welcome, Dr. Birch. We will advance your slides here at CDE.
Thank you, Director Coates. I really appreciate the introduction there, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to address the committee. So, good morning. My name is John Birch, and I am an Education Administrator for the Special Education Division of the California Department of Education. I've been here for about 2.5 years. Previous to working here, I worked in school districts for 18 years. I started my career as a math teacher at the high school level, and I taught all levels of math from general math to advanced placement calculus. And then I moved on into administration, where I worked with curriculum and instruction. So working with this is something which is really something that I value and has been a strong part of my career. So go ahead. So I want to thank you. And also I want to, as Director Coates was talking about the guidelines, referring to the guidelines that she was talking about, she covered many of the things that I am going to be also touching on in my presentation here. So I want to thank you for that. And the meeting outcomes, this is what I'm looking to accomplish here at the meeting this morning, is we'll take a look at what is the current status of students with disabilities on assessments. We'll also take a look in connection with that, the achievement gap of students with disabilities compared to other students, and then look at some ways that we can be able to support students with disabilities and really all students who are struggling in mathematics to be successful. And so, next slide. For students with disabilities, there are two main methods that their mathematics results are put out to the public. The first is called the annual performance report. The annual performance report uses data from the spring assessment of the California Smarter Balanced Summative Assessment, and the annual performance report only reports on students with disabilities. It measures the percentage of students with disabilities scoring proficient or standard met or above on the Mathematics Smarter Balanced Summative Assessment. And it is required by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act of 2004, or what we know as IDEA. Next slide. The other method that is used to report out mathematics assessment results for students with disabilities is in the California School Dashboard. California School Dashboard uses the same data as the APR for students with disabilities. However, the dashboard reports on all California students, and then it is disaggregated into different student groups, including students with disabilities. On the dashboard, individually, students receive an individual scale score, but when the results are aggregated together by groups, their scores are measured by the distance away from proficient or standard met, which is level 3 in the assessment. And the California School Dashboard is a requirement by the California Education Code. So next slide. In this slide, I show these are the results from the last 3 years that we have data from the APR report, Students with Mathematics. The blue slide records the students with disabilities, proficient and above, in the years 2016, 17, and 18. And the brown line is the target. Now, the target is set by a committee that determines what the annual targets will be for each year and each level there. And if you just look at this graph, it doesn't look that bad. The students aren't achieving that far below the target. However, if you look at the scale at the side, where they're achieving with the percentage of students scoring proficient or above, that standard met or above, is below 15%, which is, not the level where we'd like that to be. Next slide. This slide shows the results over that same period of time on the California School Dashboard mathematics, comparing all students and students with disabilities. And so if you take a look at this slide, you can see more clearly the gap between how all students perform, which is around 35 points below level 3 standard met, as compared to students with disabilities, that is about 120 points below standards met. And so that difference is the achievement gap, which you can see on this graph looks significant. And if we go to the next slide, you can see this puts it in perspective. Again, the achievement gap for students with disabilities in the year 2018 was 85.9 points. And you can see that's the largest of any student group. The next closest are foster youth with about a little over 73 points, African-American students at 54, homeless, American Indian, and English learners. So students with disabilities have traditionally not performed very well on assessments in mathematics. Now, we all know that assessment is only one measure of how well a student is doing, but for many times that's the most objective measurement that we have. And so our students with disabilities are not performing where we would like them to be. So next slide. So what we really want to look at, we see where our students with disabilities are at as far as their mathematics performance, but what are some things that we can be able to do to support them and really any other student who is struggling in mathematics to be successful in mathematics. So the goal is for all students to have access to a rigorous academic curriculum, and that's including students with disabilities. You know, back when I started teaching many years ago in math, oftentimes students that were struggling in mathematics, especially students with disabilities, were pulled out of the general education mathematics class and put in to another class to receive their mathematics education. And at that time, it seemed that that was helpful. But now as we have progressed here, we see that that really didn't give students with disabilities the most opportunity to have the same rigorous academic curriculum that other students were able to take part in. So it really put them at a disadvantage. And so now the goal is to have all students in a rigorous curriculum there, and then provide them the additional supports that they may need to be able to be successful in those classes. And so some supports that I'm going to go over are common supports that are out there, but I'll talk briefly about differentiated instruction, appropriate instructional support, especially focusing on multi-tiered systems of support, and then universal design for learning, UDL. So next slide. So differentiation of instruction is really the foundation to having all students be able to access the rigorous academic curriculum there. The key premise with differentiation of instruction is that the topic of instruction stays the same. Everybody is receiving the same topic of instruction. Things aren't left out because of where students are at, or if a student is struggling in there. What changes is the method of delivery, how the students receive that instruction. Also, it's important, and this is where it takes the expertise of the mathematics teachers that are out there, but the tasks that are provided to the students need to be moderately challenging for learning. They can't be too easy. If they're too easy, no learning is really taking place. They're just regurgitating what they already know, and there's no new learning taking place. And there's the balance that if the tasks are too difficult, then students become frustrated and might have the tendency to give up. So that's the real balance that math teachers face. The one document that I found that I think really can help mathematics teachers in doing this is what's called the Common Core Essential Elements. And this is a document actually out of West Virginia, but it covers what the Common Core standards are, which are not precisely the same as what we have in California, but are for the most part very similar. In California, maybe that could be a task to look to expand that to fit all of our state standards. But what is really neat about that is it takes each standard and it kind of flushes out what is the essential element from that. What is really the key thing that if students didn't get anything else, what is the most important for them to get out of that standard? And then what this document also does is it then has alternate achievement descriptors, which can be able to help for students at different levels what the teacher can do to differentiate the instruction to help them still learn the topic, but learn it at a level where they are challenged enough where learning is taking place. And these alternative achievement descriptors can also help resource teachers because they can be used to help in planning IEP goals and benchmarks because of the way they're written. So next slide. So this is just one snapshot of one part of these essential elements, the essential elements with the differentiated achievement level descriptors. And so you can see on the left what is the grade level cluster, the standard there. And then the next column has what is the essential element out of that? What is it that we need students to make sure that they can be able to get out of that, to understand? And then in the right-hand column are the alternative level descriptors there. So level 1 would be for the students that struggle the most in mathematics there, up through level 4. And each of those give an alternative descriptor there, and they give tasks of what the student should be able to do. And so again, those can be very useful both for the classroom mathematics teacher and for the resource teacher that is working with the student in creating the IEP goals. Next slide. The next appropriate way or next way to help our students with disabilities be able to access a rigorous mathematics curriculum is to provide appropriate instructional support. A big part of that is with the multi-tiered systems of support. And one of the keys in MTSS is to make sure students are identified as early as possible for potential mathematics difficulties and struggles. So the sooner that students can be identified that they're struggling, the fewer gaps in their education that will be. Because with mathematics, different than many other subjects, mathematics is a sequential building subject. And so if a student misses something along the way, that creates a hole in their mathematics knowledge. And if those occur throughout their education, by the time they reach the middle school, high school level, they can have many gaps in their mathematical knowledge that can then cause them to struggle in being successful in mathematics at those levels. So the sooner we can identify students for needing additional support, the more that we can eliminate those learning gaps, those holes in the education for students, and help them to be more successful later on. Next slide. Other instructional supports that are very helpful for all students, but especially for students with disabilities, is to have also visual representations of mathematical ideas. Sometimes mathematics can be a little bit abstract, so the more you can make it visual and concrete, the more likely the students are to be successful and understand the subject there. Also, an important thing, again, for all students, but especially for students with difficulties in mathematics, is to have a continual review of basic arithmetic facts to help build fluency in their mathematics knowledge. Because as they progress, we want that arithmetic knowledge to be fluent and not have them struggle with that as they are learning higher level mathematics skills there. So it's important to continue that. And then one of the things that I think I found as a math teacher is really important are motivational strategies. Many studies showed, I've looked through a lot of research on this, and mathematics efficacy is really a critical component to students being successful. Students have to believe that they can be successful in mathematics. when I was a math teacher, it always amazed me at the, back to school nights and open houses, and, parents would come in and talk to me, and they would tell me about how they just didn't get math. They struggled with it. They just didn't get it. And it was okay, which, I guess that is okay, but they kind of then pass that on to their student also. And so what we really need to do is to build into our students the belief that they can do mathematics. And a part of that is by building that fluency, by having students have success, because just like in other things, same as in math, success breeds success. And if students believe that they can be successful in mathematics, oftentimes that gets them a long ways down to the road, because that helps them persevere when they run into difficulties in math problems, or is when they have a challenging math problem. If they believe that they can do it, then they will persevere and continue on instead of giving up. So I think that's a critical part of our support for students. Next slide. And then just some other things that sometimes with students that have difficulties, especially students with disabilities, what teachers can do. I know this was something that I had to struggle with, but make sure that we continue to use academic mathematics language with the students. It's easy for the teacher to want to use more simple language to try and help describe to the student what's going on, which that can be useful, but that's useful in describing what the academic mathematics language means. And it's really important to continue using that academic language for them, so they don't get behind as they get further on down the line and they get in math classes where that academic math language is being used. And if they haven't been exposed to it, they don't understand. And then also, it's important to focus on students' strengths, what they can do, instead of, drilling in an area where a student struggles and sometimes then getting frustrated. Take a student where they're at and with their strengths, and then focus on that, and then expanding into those areas that they may struggle with. And then using real life problems to make mathematics applicable to everyday life. The question I got many, many times, and I'm sure it's no different now than when I did, that math teachers get, is, when am I ever going to use this in life? And so it's important to have problems that represent real life, that they see will help them in their life as they progress. Next slide. And then finally, what can be helpful in our students with disabilities is Universal Design for Learning, UDL. And the premise of UDL is that when instruction is designed to meet the students with the greatest needs, it's beneficial for all. So if it's good instruction for students that are struggling, it's good instruction for everybody. It can be able to help everybody. And so one of the big things with UDL is providing multiple ways to access the information and to be able to engage with the information. And the great thing about math is, most of the time, there's not just one way to do a problem. There are many ways to do the problem, and students need to be given the freedom to know that that's okay, and that that's actually a good thing. Next slide. Also, along with that, provide multiple means of representing the data, representing the information, whether it's audio, visual, or hands-on, trying to access all modalities of learning there, with both how the information is represented and how students can be able to then show their knowledge in the information. So not just tests, which was common, but also even oral reports, portfolios, group projects are different ways that students can be able to share the knowledge that they have. So again, the principle is to optimize lesson plans for all learners by focusing on those learners who struggle the most. Next slide. And so then what I wanted to share with you is just a few resources. And then at the end, I have some others, but some resources that I think are really helpful. And the first one I have here is called the Early Math Project. And this really focuses on the beginnings of teaching math to our students, all the way down at that preschool TK level. And one of the things that I really like about this is the motto of this group. Their motto, growing math minds, changing math mindsets. And I think that that's really a big thing that we need to do in the United States here, is really change that mindset from what I shared with you, how parents would be, that I just can't do math, to, math is just a skill like anything else. And some people might have to work harder to learn it. Others might have more natural inclination, but everybody can learn the skill. And that's really changing that mindset. And so I like this both because it provides early education for math, how to introduce it from the very beginning. And again, start that success in math at an early age that then can hopefully continue on through their educational career. And their motto, their philosophy of changing that math mindset. Next slide. This one is just a resource that was shared with me. And during this time of virtual learning, with the online learning, this document, from Sarah Powell, she has created a lot of manipulatives that can be used for students online. Education in person, we have over the years really increased the use of manipulatives in educational instruction. But now with this time of online virtual learning, that is difficult to do. And so this has some resources that math teachers can be able to use without having to create everything themselves. So that's, I think, in this day, an important resource. Next slide. And finally, this is a site which is put forth by CFCC, and it's Math Success for All. And this really goes through pretty detailed in mathematics education and how to help with instruction. Included in this is a unit on UDL that I think is very helpful for math teachers and those curriculum experts that we have helping them. So these are just 3 resources that I wanted to highlight. But next slide. Then these are just some resources which include some of the ones that I just went over, but some other resources that are helpful for math teachers and resource teachers in being able to help support our students in their instruction. Next slide. And again, that just continues with some others. These are just a few. There are many out there, but these are a few that I just wanted to highlight that I think really provide clear and usable information to support math instruction. So next slide. So to just kind of summarize what looking at here, traditionally students with disabilities have struggled in their mathematics performance, especially on math assessments. And so I know that has been a focus of previous frameworks, and I'm sure that you, especially hearing from what Director Coates said, have that as a focus in this. And so just 2 points that I think are important as we remember those supports is that early intervention, is important, and then building that math efficacy for our students. If students can believe they can do it, they can be successful. And so thank you. I appreciate the time. And if you have any questions, I'd be, with whatever time is left, I'd be glad to answer that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Birch, for the valuable information you have provided this morning. Denise, are there any questions? Pam Williamson?
Thank you. I really appreciate your presentation. I'm wondering, will these slides, or at least the slides that have those particular resources, be available so that we can come back and check them out?
Yes, they will. We can include them in the box link for you.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Did you say? Okay, no other questions. Perfect. Thank you again, Dr. Birch.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity, and good luck with the committee there. Thank you for all your work and what you do for our students here.
Indeed. Now I would like to welcome to the meeting our lead writer and our writing team, Dr. Brian Lindeman. Dr. Lindeman and the team have been very busy preparing the chapters before you today, as well as continuing their work on the other framework chapters. Dr. Lindeman, would you please introduce yourself as well as any other members of the writing team who are joining us this morning and say a few words to the committee regarding your approach to today's chapters?
Sure. Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Brian Lindeman, and I think the rest of the team is on the call or has been on the call at some point this morning already. We have Katie Early as well, was serving on the writing team, and Katie's at Chico State with me. We have two Stanford faculty members, Jenny Langer-Osuna and Joe Bowler as well. And we will be joining in small groups too, as much as we can throughout this 2 days. We also have then Ben Ford as well from Sonoma State. So again, we're really excited for you to be, well, for us to share these new chapters with you, 6, 7, and 10. I made a couple little comments here about those, as well as the revision of the number sense chapter, which is our first chapter that has been back to you a second time. So we hope you like it. We like it better, and we think it's a stronger chapter, but we're certainly welcome any additional comments. So in chapters 6 and 7, that's TK5 and 6-8, as you've seen, those are, the focus of a lot of those is on sort of how we captured big ideas using these categories of investigation. So those were things like exploring shape and space, looking at how data can be used in the world, things like that, that we thought really gave some coherence to tasks and how one rich task can actually sort of hit several different standards rather than this more of sort of atomic approach of one task per standard. So that was what we had thought about with those. You saw that already in the high school chapter. And then chapter 10 was on technology and distance learning. So that focused on both classroom technologies that could be used in in-person instruction, as well as in distance learning, what sort of technologies are used there. So again, we welcome any comments about that. Certainly some of you have a lot more technology expertise and experience, and hopefully we'll see some better things come out of that too. And then lastly, on number sense, I just wanted to highlight a couple revisions in particular. To that, just a sec, let me navigate back to it here where I have that list. Yeah, so what was called for in the comments there was lots of comments, and we tried to address every single comment in some fashion or another. A clear definition of number sense was provided now in the introduction. I hope you're able to find that. Big ideas for each grade band are now organized into a table at the beginning of the chapter, so folks can see that at a glance. Pitfalls with proportions was a box that was added to address the dangers of cross multiplication, as was called for in a few of the comments. Multiple new vignettes and examples on the order of 1, 2, 3 pages each for some of those vignettes have been added. At least one more per grade band for, again, this is one of the progressions chapters, so it does go TK12. And then some existing vignettes were clarified in certain places, made more open-ended. The language was adjusted, things like that. And then lastly, a definition for quantitative reasoning was provided as well. So just wanted to highlight a few of those changes that hopefully you saw. And that's it for my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lindeman. Appreciate that update. And we'll be seeing you in the small groups and throughout our two-day meeting. Okay, we are now ready to begin our first small group session, grades TK to 5, Chapter 6. We will conduct this meeting in breakout rooms in just a moment. I will provide the background information before we break into the small groups. All right, so the first read of this chapter is intended to help you provide feedback to the writing team in three primary areas: global recommendations, the addition of crucial content that should be added, and important or significant content information that is either incomplete or incorrect. So prior to the meeting, you submitted your individual prioritized recommendations. We have taken all of your recommendations and compiled one master document that includes 3 tiers. Tier 1 are your highest priority recommendations. Tier 2 are your next highest priority recommendations. And finally, Tier 3, which are the rest of your recommendations. You are seeing each other's recommendations for the first time this morning. With the intent of helping you clear the way for a more rich and robust dialogue during consensus discussion, you will review the prioritized recommendations and highlight those that you do not want to move forward to the writers. You will highlight these comments red, and then you will highlight those where you feel you need major clarification. In other words, where you have critical questions in order to feel comfortable moving those comments forward to the writers. You will highlight these yellow, of course, with the assistance of the facilitators. The rule of thumb that we would like you to follow is, if in general the recommendation works for you, you do not need to highlight it at this time. The intent of this process is to elevate and amplify those comments you wish to devote your discussion time to. Now, time permitting, you may be able to add additional recommendations that would be presented to the whole group for consideration. These would be captured in a Tier 4 section, but there must be consensus within the small group first in order for those to move forward to the main meeting. Curriculum Frameworks and Instructional Resources, or CFIRD staff, will facilitate the small groups in the 3 meeting rooms in order to help you make the best use of your small group time. Are there any questions at this time? Okay. Members of the public, you are invited to view the proceedings of the small groups via the Zoom links provided on the next page. To access the committee's recommendations via the Google Doc and view the proceedings that way. You may also request the links be sent to you via the Math Framework mailbox on the slide. We will project this information again in just a moment. Okay, now here are our small groups. The committee has been divided into 3 small groups. Once again, we have Alpha, Beta, and Delta. Committee members, please find your name and note the breakout room you have been assigned to. In a moment, you will leave the main meeting room and log into the appropriate breakout room. Members of the public, to observe the deliberations of the committee, you may choose a group and sign into the Zoom meeting using the information that will appear on the next slide. You will be admitted to a waiting room and then promptly admitted into this small group room. All of the rooms will be deliberating on the same chapter at the same time. If you choose to exit a meeting to attend a different one, you will be admitted to the waiting room of the new meeting and then admitted into the meeting in progress. A kind reminder for our members of the public not to interfere in any way with the work of the committee. We welcome you to the small group Zoom meetings, but please know that we do reserve the right to protect the work of the committee and block anyone displaying inappropriate or disrespectful behavior. Members of the public attend as observers and may not use the participation keys or speak during the breakout. Once again, committee members, these are the reactions. You will use yes, no, and thumbs up. And when you wish to speak, of course, you use the raise hand feature. These are the features you will use in the small group, and these are found once again by clicking the participants button on the menu bar. Okay, so we are just about ready to go into the small groups. Members of the public, if you don't have these links yet, you may request them through the Math Framework mailbox. Please send us a message and we'll get you the direct link so that you do not have to type in these long addresses. If you are having any difficulty signing on, please feel free to also call the phone number that's on the screen, and we will assist you that way as well. The small group work will continue until the lunch break, which is at 11:35, and this slide will remain projected on the live webcast so that people know where to go. But we will, at this point, break into the small groups, and we will see you there. Thank you.
Lena Bradshaw,
Here.
Aaron Baker,
Here.
Lori Firemuth, Lori Fryermuth,
Here. Sorry.
Lori Fury,
Here.
Lindsay Gatfield,
Here.
Crystal Gomez,
Here.
Janet Hollister,
Here.
Lisa Hogerman,
Here.
Stephanie Holloway,
Here.
Andrew Huffaker,
Here.
Janie Kim,
Here.
Rebecca Pariso,
Here.
Christina Rubalcava,
Here.
Theodore Sagun,
Here.
Bernadette Salgarino,
Here.
Cole Sampson,
Here.
Rosa Sarratore,
Here.
Diane Wilson.
Here.
Thank you.
Great. We will now turn it over to our co-chairs for a brief community building activity. Laurie and Diane.
Thank you, and good afternoon, and welcome back. We thought we would start the afternoon with sharing something with each other that brought a smile to your face. It can be work-related or not work-related, and I'll give you about 15 seconds to think of what it is you can share in less than half a minute. And then I'm just going to go down the participant list, and I would assume your list is in the same order as mine, but maybe not. So I'll tell you who's coming up next. So we're going to start with Andrew, and then we'll go to Eris. And Andrew, whenever you're ready, you can share something that made you smile recently.
Celebrating my birthday with friends.
Oh, very nice. And oops, lost my list. Eris, and then Christina.
I was working the other night at nighttime before my kids went to sleep. We were all doing math at the dining room table and having fun doing it. So I love working with them. I don't usually get a chance to during the regular year. So.
Great, thank you. And Christina, then Cole.
So my son's in 3rd grade, and his teacher was having them do a roll call with a letter of the day, which was M. And so they had to share something special with him, and he said his mom was his M.
Very sweet. Andrew, oops, let's see. Cole, and then Crystal.
Oh, so mine would be my 14-month-old son just learned how to kick a ball, and just seeing him how excited and how much he laughs whenever he's kicking that ball in the backyard, it gives me a kick every time.
Very nice, thank you. And Crystal, then Aaron.
I got a video this morning from my child's daycare. She's 4 years old, and she was reading a book for the first time, and it wasn't from memory. It was her actually reading the words.
Very nice. Let's see, that was Crystal. Aaron, oops, my list keeps changing. Let's see, that was Crystal, so I think somebody moved out. Let's see. Aaron, I think we're on you, and then Janet.
Being out in my garden and being able to have time in the garden, so I grow plumeria. So I have like a tropical paradise, and I have 2 plumeria that have never bloomed that bloomed in the last 2 days.
Oh, very nice. Jana and then Jamie.
My daughter was recently driving from San Francisco to San Diego, and we live in Santa Barbara. And so she stopped by to spend the night, and we got up early and had breakfast burritos on Monday morning. And so it's just kind of fun social distance check in with my daughter.
Very nice. Janie and then Lena.
So I think everything about my kids, but one thing for sure is when my 4-year-old daughter wakes up at 6:30 in the morning to greet me goodbye as I go to work.
Wow. Thank you. And Lena and then Lindsay.
Virtual happy hour.
Great, thank you. Lindsay, then Lisa.
I'm taking the time out of all the stress and craziness to just go for a walk yesterday. Going for a hike with a friend was just a nice getaway from work for a little bit.
Great, thank you. Lisa and then Lori. Lori Freermuth, sorry.
During this time, during this time, my husband and I have been doing a lot of cleaning out of things, and we found a rather large stack of old 78 recordings that he's gotten from his parents and I had gotten from mine. And we had one of our grown children, our son, come up and take a look at them. He lives in the same town, and he was so excited. He took them all, and he sent us a picture back of he and his newlywed wife in their living room with their 2 dogs listening to these old 78 recordings. And that was really cool that a millennial now is into these old records. It was great.
Great, thank you. Lori Freermuth and then Lori Fury.
I think I'll be honest, getting to stay home for the rest of the semester brought a smile to my face. Our school district is going distance learning for the rest of the semester, so I felt good about that. And just getting time to spend around my house doing odd things and hanging out with my cats.
Great, thank you. Lori Fury and then Rebecca.
Yesterday, my son was asking what I looked like when I was a baby. He's 4, so we pulled out some pictures and I showed him, and he said, "That looks like me."
Nice, thank you. Rebecca and then Rosa.
My daughter made me the best chocolate cake, and it was just for no reason, but I mean, it was moist and it had the best icing. It was so good.
Great, thank you. Rosa and then Stephanie.
I have 2 little friends, Simon, who is 6 now, and his little sister 3. They each had a birthday pretty recently, and it was pretty funny seeing Olivia in her little 2-seater Hummer bike helmets and scooting around trying to get it in reverse is pretty funny.
Thank you. And then Stephanie and Theo.
So I recently had a birthday and wasn't really looking forward to it, but I started the day with FaceTiming my granddaughters who are twins and them giving me little kisses over FaceTime. They're 17 months old and they just kind of, mwah. And then my husband had a little socially distanced get together planned with some of my closest friends that I haven't seen since March. So that was wonderful.
Great, thank you. And then Theo, and then it'll be me.
I guess 2 things, more like work-related academic, from a work-related academic standpoint, teacher efficacy and co-teaching online, as well as the students' ideas and ratios and proportions yesterday, as well as Zoom happy hour.
Great, thank you. And for me, it was camping over Labor Day weekend. There were 14 of us who went, and we did a socially distanced camp out, but some of the people who went were my oldest granddaughter and her dad's, who I hadn't seen in about 8 months. And so it was really nice, even though we couldn't hug and we stayed far apart. It was great. All right, thank you for participating in that. And I will turn it back over to, I think, Constantino.
Thank you so much. That was fun. That was fun to listen to. So I wanted to give us some time before we go into the whole group discussion to draw your attention to the public comments that are in the box link that are available to you. 3 of the comments have come in recently within the last 48 hours. And so we just wanted to make sure that you have had a chance to read and sort of reread them before you begin your whole group consensus discussion. So we'll give about 5 minutes or so right now to just allow you that time to reacquaint yourself with the public comments so that it can be in your mind as we're doing the whole group discussion. So we'll give about 5 minutes and then we'll all come back together and you'll be in the hands of your co-chairs. And again, those are located in the box link.
Hi, everyone. I know that you're busy reading. If you could just go ahead and put a thumbs up into next to your name under participants when you are ready to go ahead and move forward, that would be greatly appreciated.
Lori, can I ask a question? Was there anybody else who couldn't download or open up the last 2 comment documents? Or was it just me?
I know I was able to.
Okay, it's probably just me then. Thanks.
You gotta hit download a couple of times because at first it looked like it wouldn't, and then all of a sudden it appeared as a download.
Okay, thanks, Rose.
Mine continually says download, but it downloaded it. And so I went to my downloads and it was there.
We'll get started in about 1 more minute. Okay, so welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and start our whole group consensus discussion for chapter 6, grades TK through 5. As we begin, we'll go ahead and go over our discussion of protocols. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to be voting using our Zoom reactions. You need to click on your participants to see the reactions. Next slide. Okay. There are 4 reactions. We'll be using them to vote. A raised hand will tell me you would like to speak to a particular comment. A yes vote. We'll be using the green. A no vote, the no, and then I can live with it is under the 3 dots is the thumbs up. Okay. Next slide, please. All right, so I believe at this time we're going to go ahead and project the combined comments.
We are ready, Lori.
Okay, and I don't, is it just my screen or is it just really tiny?
It's really small. And can we get the link for that document?
It is in the same. Yeah, it is in the same link that you received earlier, and you just go to whole group. You're going to see a folder that says whole group, and you'll be able to find this document. Is that better?
We've been zooming at 200% in the breakout rooms, if that helps.
Does that work?
I'm sorry, I'm a pain in the neck, I know, but I looked for the link again in the chat and it's not there anymore. Can you post it one more time?
Let me project it. It is this link here. /math CFCC 4, and CFCC is all caps, _ all with a capital A.
Can someone put that in the chat, please? Thank you.
Denise, are you able to put that in the chat? Okay, we're going to work on that. If you go to your history as well, if you close your browser, if you go to your history, it's going to give you immediately the recently closed pages, and that's where you can return to that page.
We ready to begin?
All right, so we're not going to get it in the chat.
We're working on that, Rosa. We are.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's if you just go to type in bit.ly, oh, there it is.
It's in the chat. We're ready when you are, Lori.
Okay. So it looks like our first yellow comment, we have a couple red, but they are struck through. So our first red comment, scrolling through. We do not appear to have any red comments. We're supposed to, that are not struck through. Strike through means that at least two of the groups chose to go ahead and remove that comment. So we're actually starting with number 17 is our first yellow comment up for discussion.
Lori?
Uh-huh.
Yes, let me just to add information to what you just shared. Yes, there are no red comments that require any discussion, so you're going to begin with the yellow comments, which are the ones that members indicated that they needed more discussion on, more information on. So you'll do those, but you also are going to see down at the very bottom in the note catcher in the tier 4 that we have some additional comments, and so you'll want to discuss those as well. They're down here, and including a comment, a clarification from our writers. So that's been added in here as a writer clarification information to be inserted at line 1008 of the chapter. But yeah, do begin with the yellow comments. And I believe the first one is 17.
Right. Okay. Okay, so I know that this comment came up in my small group, so I don't know if Cole, would you like to go ahead and address this comment since it was your comment?
Yeah, sure. So I left off part of my comment here, and I was really referring to the 3-read strategy from Amy and Grace and the math reasoning routines for reasoning, or as Bernadette pointed out, it's also in the UL SCEL. But really taking it from what felt kind of like a 2-read, we're almost there. Let's just show them the full strategy. We actually added more specific language also on comment 74 in the extra down below related to that, like what we'd revise that to.
So I don't know if we could scroll down to the very bottom to comment 74 that goes along with comment 17. So this was, as Cole mentioned, this was some more information that was provided during our small group about this comment 17. Give everybody a second to read it. Okay. Any further comment on number 17? Okay. I'm seeing no new hands. So a yes vote will move this forward, will unhighlight it and move it forward to the writers. A no vote will make it red and it will not move forward to the writers.
Lori, just one small clarification. So based on the vote, if this gets approved to move forward to the writers, it will receive a green highlight, which will indicate that it had received discussion and a vote.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to flip between two different screens.
No problem.
Okay, so it'll be highlighted green. I apologize, everyone.
Okay, we have 17 yes, 1 no, and 1 I can live with it.
Okay, we have consensus.
Okay, so our next comment to discuss is number 23. Okay. Would anyone like to speak to comment number 23?
Oh, I will. Since
okay.
I'm sorry, I forgot to raise my hand.
That's okay, go ahead. And then Diane, okay. I'll have you speak next.
Okay, since it was my comment, as I was, and this is 23, right, not 22. When I looked at the example of the algorithm, and I understand that the small letters or the small numbers that were for the regrouping, I had to look at it and study it for a while before I understood exactly what they were doing. And I know pretty sure that's just me, but I started to think if there were parents or their teachers that were reading this and looking at this and thinking this is really confusing, I was just wondering if there was any other way that they could show the regrouping. And I mean, I understood all of the other examples. I understand the transition that they're going through to get to the algorithm. I just was wondering if there was a clearer way of doing that. And I gave an example of just, the standard algorithms. And I guess it was just the numbers 44 and 720. And with all the other numbers for the regrouping, that really just had me confused. And I'm sure that maybe I wouldn't be the only one. So wondering if something could be changed in that.
Okay,
thank you.
Okay, Diane and then Lindsay.
I really liked this example because I think it did an excellent job of showing where all of the partial products come from and then helping the standard algorithm to make sense. I could see maybe as a third have student D do the standard algorithm without showing the carrying like is done in student C, but I would not want to lose student C's work.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Christina?
So my thinking in highlighting this one was just where it says the problem should read, and it's just got the standard algorithm. So I think kind of echoing what Diane was saying about not losing this. I think it could perhaps be clearer if there was even a sort of like a circle around the 2 and the 4, making the 24 with a little note kind of showing that it's 24. We've got that 2 that we've carried. I think that could make the student C's work a little clearer, because if somebody's not familiar with that idea of the place value, they might not understand what the 2 means. So sort of circling and showing what that means, kind of a little caption, I think would make that clearer.
Okay, thank you. Diane, did you want to add something else?
Nope, just forgot to lower my hand.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that being said, do we want to, so I'm pausing because I'm thinking of two things. I'm thinking about what was said about adding clarification to the example that currently exists, the example C that already exists, because I don't believe that is mentioned here. So I guess, and I noticed that a lot of people liked the examples, but want it to be clarified. Do we do we want to add that into our add-on comments? Or can we add Mr. Silva, if you can help us, can we add a comment here that if we choose to keep this, we still want clarification on that? How would we proceed
Yes,
from
this is
here?
absolutely the time to, if you would like to modify this recommendation, this is the time to do it in whole group.
Okay. So Lisa, you had something else to say?
No, I was going to say my last comment was on this. Please find some other way to show regrouping numbers when performing the standard algorithm. I liked what Christina had said. If there's some way to clarify what those numbers mean, and you know, that would be greatly appreciated. So yeah, I'm good with that. In fact, that was how I ended that statement, was just clarify the regrouping that was going on.
Okay, so maybe we could just add on the end of that comment, and just find some other way, maybe please clarify the regrouping strategy.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Janet?
So I'm wondering if we want to leave the section that says this problem should read and then the standard algorithm, or whether there's a proposal to take out that particular section of this comment. I would propose taking out that part that says this problem should read.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Bernadette, and then we'll talk about that proposal.
I would just like to add on to what was already there in the last sentence. Please clarify the regrouping strategy. And I think we're meaning strategy from student C.
Okay. So maybe,
Student C. From student C, and there was a mention about maybe using some circling or identifying what those numbers mean.
Okay. So if we could also add that, consider us identifying what it's the little numbers at the top, correct?
You're right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Lisa?
There was somebody who had mentioned possibly adding a student D, or then they switched to the algorithm, the example that I had given, to show that transition to maybe a fourth example.
Okay, so let me ask this before we go any further with that. So this isn't necessarily a vote on the edit. I'm going to ask maybe for a vote on the edit. Would you guys feel comfortable making a student D, adding that piece to the comment, adding a student D that shows the standard algorithm? If you could just be a yes or no, just on that. Just on the student, adding a student D. Just to kind of get where we are with that.
It appears that we do not have consensus for that. Denise?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it looks like overwhelmingly no's there.
Okay. So then the next piece is, Lindsay, I know that you had your hand up and you have not yet spoken. Would you like to add something to the conversation?
I was going to say that this is a version of, not this, what is in there already is a version of the standard algorithm. It's just calling out the partial products in a different way. And so to just say that student D was, but that already didn't pass. So I'm good. I think that it's clear the way it is in the framework, but if people need clarification, then that's fine.
Okay, thank you. All right, so since we're kind of editing this, I hope it's okay if I'm kind of going in pieces. So then the proposal was to delete the part of the comment that says this problem should read, is to mark that as read. So can we take a vote on so basically eliminating from the comment, this problem should read? If you are a yes vote, you are voting to eliminate that part. If you are a no vote, you want to keep that part of the comment.
We have consensus on that?
Okay, so this part of the problem should read will be deleted or marked red. Okay. All right, so granted, I'm just going to be honest. I know that the reading is fairly confusing, but with the writers being here listening to this, I have a feeling they can gather what we mean from the comment as it stands. So as it stands right now, let's go ahead and vote yes to highlight the remaining parts of the comment green and move it forward, or no to put the remainder part of the comment as red.
We have 15 yes and 4 I can live with it.
We have consensus.
So that the remaining part of that comment will be marked green and it will be moved forward to the writers. The next comment up for discussion is comment 25. Theo, I think this is your comment, if I'm not mistaken. Did you want to add anything or any clarifying comments to this?
Yeah, I suppose I can clarify. So a matching strategy typically comes up when young people are engaging in compare problems. So if you take like a compare difference unknown, Jimmy has 15 marbles. How many more marbles does he have compared to Leslie, who has 12, right? That elicits from young people a matching strategy. So they'll direct model that in different ways that will convey like that idea of matching, but it doesn't come up in separate result unknown problems.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. Yes would move it on to the writers. Red would remove it from the writer list.
We have 15 yes and 4 I can live with it.
We have consensus.
Okay. Okay, so the next yellow is down in comment 67. And I think there was a clarification. I believe this is Nancy's comment. I do not believe she's here today. So I don't think she can clarify for us. Does anyone want to speak to this, or maybe the group that highlighted it yellow want to speak to this?
I mean, this is Kyle. I was facilitating the group, and I didn't want to change any of the language in the original comment, number 19. So I copied it down here. And then we surmised that the line numbers are 567 through 574, that it was just a simple typographical error. And we wanted to just bring that up to the group to see if that was reasonable, knowing that the person who made the comment was not attending the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. I appreciate that. I see people flipping papers. So if we are okay with making the change in the edit to 567 to 574, I'm sorry, I saw a hand and then it went down. Are we okay with that? Then a yes vote. If we want to leave the comment as is, it's a no vote.
We have 19 yes.
Okay, so we're going to change the lines to 567.
I have a question. Should I make the change specifically on number 19 and then delete number 67 down here? Or should we highlight 67 green?
I think that would be I think that would be the cleanest thing, Kyle, just to clean up 19.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you guys are fantastic. I'm so glad I chose to facilitate chapter 6 because we are already done. Those were all the comments that we had that were for yellow.
Well, you also do have all of the tier 4s, Lori.
Oh, do we have? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's
I was
okay.
just so excited. I
Yeah,
just got ahead of
I know.
myself.
And again, what tier 4 is these are additional comments that were added in the small groups, so they haven't been presented to the whole group, and therefore they haven't been discussed and decided on. So you'll want to engage the entire committee now in a discussion of each one of these recommendations.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was so excited that we were done. All right, so if we could all, we're going to be looking at tier 4. So these are new comments. So we'll be starting with comment 67.
And I may have, this is Kyle again, I may have forgotten to indicate with initials who made that comment. So if that's your comment and you'd like to speak to it, that would be very helpful.
Okay, Lindsay?
So we just had noticed that on line 712 and 725, it's teacher questioning and then the students going back and forth, and they specifically call out right angle twice, like does this shape have a right angle? And it's in the TK to 2 section, and the 2013 framework specifically says that that students do not need to be able to label types of angles for 2nd grade. And so I just didn't want teachers to think like, yes, well, we want kids to extend and things like that. I don't think that it's developmentally appropriate, like the 90-degree angle and getting into what exactly a right angle is. So just to use sides and angles vaguely, like, does this have any angles? And it could be a circle or an oval if it doesn't, things like that. And then how many sides does it have? And so just making it more grade level appropriate for the TK to 2 grade span.
Okay. All right. So we haven't done this before. So I'm just going to assume, does anyone have any further comment on this? Do we just vote to move them forward then, Constantino?
Right. If there is no further discussion, then you call for a vote, and it would be yes to move it forward, and basically no to not move it forward.
Okay, thank you. All right, so any further comment on comment 67? Seeing no hands, if you are okay moving this forward is a yes vote. Deleting it is a no vote.
We have 18 yes and 1 I can live with it.
We have consensus?
And I'm sorry, by deleting, I mean red.
Yes.
Okay, so moving to the beta group. Comment 68, lines 321 to 428. All right, Christina.
So this was my comment. I was just thinking that if we're going to call this section TK to 5 or TK to 2, it would be nice to include them in the introductory section of that TK to 2 grade span. There's a lot of reference to kindergarten students will do this. There's not a lot of guidance for TK teachers.
Okay, thank you. Right. Any other comments on this on line 68? Okay, so a yes vote will move it to the authors. A no vote will not.
We have 11 yes, 1 no, and 7 I can live with it.
We have consensus.
Okay. Moving right along to comment 69, move section to a call out box. Okay, Christina.
Sorry, that was our group again, and that was actually a writer's comment that they realized that section did come from chapter 3, and they thought it might be more appropriate to be in a call out box so that if teachers are reading all of the chapters, they understand that that's repeated. But if they're kind of looking at this in chunks, it's still important information.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else would like to speak to this? Okay, so again, yes is moving it forward to the writers.
We have 17 yes, and 2 I can live with it.
Consensus.
Okay. All right, looking at comment number 70, a description of designated ELD.
This is my comment. I think this is a really appropriate place because there's mention of students needing further support. So this would be a great place to describe the designated ELD provided.
Okay. Anyone else would like to speak to this comment or have questions? Okay, a yes vote will move it to the writers.
We have 15 yes and 4 I can live with it.
Consensus.
Okay. Moving on to comment number 71. Anybody would like to speak to this comment?
This was mine. I noticed as I was reading that on line 684, where it says investigating mathematics by exploring stories told by measurement and data, and then it lists the clusters. The clusters are all the geometry and talking about shapes. So it just seemed like they were using the wrong heading. So it really should have been shape and space, and it does fall under that shape and space subheading.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else would like to speak? Okay. If we could go ahead and vote, yes moves it to the writers.
We have 11 yes, 1 no, and 7 I can live with it.
Consensus.
Okay. The next one is comment number 72, which actually leads back to comment number 5, which was struck through. That was my comment, and I can just say why I asked for that. When I was reading this, I felt that it felt like most of it felt like a narrative, and while many of the standards were called out, I never saw in the framework a complete list of standards that applies to grade 1 or applies to grade 2. And so I was just wondering if there could be some way that the standards, not just the standards that are in that are listed there, but to ensure that teachers understand that there's a complete set of standards somewhere that they can reference to, either by a link or something else in the document. That's what I was referring to, so that teachers don't just read that and only see the standards that are called out on the particular descriptions or narrative, but know that there are maybe more standards that they need to make sure to give instruction to. Anybody else want to speak to that? Okay, Rosa, and then Dr. Lindemann.
I guess I still don't get where you're saying you want the standards listed. I mean, in the old framework, they're all at the back.
And that's fine with me.
So, yeah, okay.
Just some reference that to look at it as an entirety instead of in pieces.
But are you asking that all of the first grade standards at some point are in the chapter that is TK5?
Either in the chapter or a link is provided to that document Because I can just say in our conversation in our group was that there's another document that has all the standards in it. And I just feel like if we ask teachers to naturally know that they need to look at another document to ensure that could be confusing or misleading. So just either there's a link to it in the framework or somewhere where there's a complete set that links to a complete set of standards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I was just making the assumption that was going to be part of it regardless of, but maybe
that could be
safe not to assume, I guess. So thanks for bringing it up.
Dr. Lindeman?
Yes, so currently the standards are not listed at the beginning of the chapter or the end of the chapter. And so I think it certainly makes sense to provide a link to the standards, but if we think about these are grade banded chapters, so we're talking about on the order of 30 or 40 pages or so, or maybe not that, maybe I'd say 20 to 25 pages of just standards listed for all the grades from TK up to 5, which would be not at the beginning of the chapter. That's just a huge amount to wade through. Right. So maybe having an appendix, there's multiple ways to go with this, and we're happy to do whatever, but either an appendix or a link to the actual California Common Core Standards document itself. So again, part of the understanding of this particular framework is that this is the second one to follow the Common Core aligned ones. That's why there were many more standards listed. In fact, most of them were listed, but they had separate grade chapters, and then we ended up with 900 plus pages. So just wanted to clarify.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. All right, Lisa?
I have a question. Maybe this is a silly question, or I'm just not thinking. Will the 2013 framework that was worked on, will that be totally gotten rid of, taken off of the site? Will teachers have any access to that at all, or does this replace it? Because if that's, I like the idea that Lori has about having a link to it or having some reference to those standards, but maybe this is a discussion for some other time. Do the teachers not have any access at all then to the 2013 framework? I don't know if anybody can answer that or not.
What I can add, this is Constantino. The 2013 framework is not going to be removed from the website. But of course, when the new framework is adopted, that will be our framework. It won't be a time where we have two frameworks now. We just have one, right? The state board adopted one, but for reference, the other one will remain available on the website.
Thank you, Constantine.
And Costa, let me just add that it remains standards aligned, even though it's not the most current version.
Okay, so let's go ahead and have a vote to 72 to move that forward to the writers, or a no vote would not move it forward.
We have 6 yes, 1 no, and 12 I can live with it.
That was 6 yes, Shauna? Okay, our threshold is at least 7 yes in order to move the comment forward, so we did not reach the threshold, and therefore it does not go forward under the current vote. I don't know if you want to engage any further discussion or clarification, but that vote does not reach consensus.
Okay. All right. Rosa, did you want to speak again?
Well, only because I still am not clear. So there isn't going to be a list of the standards even at the back of this book, or that's still under consideration? Because I didn't quite understand.
So that's a recommendation that you can make. If that's how you would like to approach this, if you would like to see some kind of an appendix or some kind of a standards reference included, this would be the time to recommend that.
Well, and I think that might be, I can't speak for Lisa, where the comment, so there's no reference to the old one at all, where you did have all of the standards listed at the back. You had what the math practices look like by grade. There are a few things that could just be directly put in there that I don't think are totally old, or I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that too. But at some point, I think people need to know what these 5.NBT1 means. I mean, not everybody's got them in the back of their hands.
Okay, Lisa?
I would like to go on with what Rosa said, and I think it's not, even if it's an appendix or a link, because for some teachers, this will be the only document they look at. They're not going to look up, you know, the Common Core standards, the state standards, whatever, in a different document. They need to have some link either as an appendix or a link somewhere in this document to have it so that they can access those numbers and find out what those numbers mean. So I'm in full agreement with Rosa and actually Lori's comment to begin with.
Thank you. Okay, Christina?
So I think we need to be clear as a group. Do we want just a link referring to the state standards, or do we want an appendix? Because those are two different ideas. If we want an appendix, I would propose using what we already have from the 2013 framework. For example, the last 3 pages of the framework, where it gives an overview, the grade 1 overview, and then it lists the standards, so that the writers aren't having to write an appendix from scratch. But I think we need to clarify, is it a link to the standards, or is it an appendix that we're asking for?
Okay, Rosa?
Well, and then what's also in the 2013 one is that you've got the grade level chapters, which we're now doing as a band, which is great. But each of the grade level chapters at the end had the grades standards, which were probably 2 to 3 pages a piece. I think that's where Dr. Lindemann's 25 pages comes. If you put all the K to 5, that's a lot to put in the middle of the book, as opposed to at the end.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like we're having more discussion on this. So I'm not sure, Constantino, should I have a revote on amending the standard to a link or an appendix? How do we move forward?
Right, I think the first step would be to amend the recommendation to be clear what it is that you will be voting on now, because I agree, I have heard a couple of different ideas, but you want to get your idea down first as concretely as possible, so that then the committee can vote on whether or not to move that amended recommendation forward.
Okay, so so maybe we could amend the comment to read an appendix that provides the complete list of standards, see 2013 framework. So, and if I'm saying this wrong, please someone jump in and let me know.
Can I ask a question here at this point that might help a little bit? Okay. Is if we have 5.this.that listed and mentioned, because it comes up in one of the examples. Of course, we know doing that for every single standard is impossible, right? We don't have examples for every standard. The old framework didn't have that either. But when we list one of those, is it possible, this is a CDE directed question, is it possible to have that be linked in a way where they click on that and they see the full standard? If it's in the same document and it's in an appendix, it seems like that could be done. That could be a link, an internal link. It wouldn't break, it wouldn't go outside. So that's just one idea, but I don't know if that's even possible. So, but that seems like that would be really helpful and a reason for including it in the appendix.
Right, internally we're nodding, thinking that could be possible. Yeah, that would be something, if that's the direction that is decided on, that we would look into how to do that.
Okay, and I'm just going to say it's not a link to the 2013 frameworks. I think it's like see the 2013 frameworks for setup of how to do the standards. I don't know. I'm not thinking. Maybe Christina or Lisa can help me out.
it wouldn't be a link to the old framework.
Right.
It's a link to the 2013 adopted California Common Core standards.
Okay.
So it's not to the 2013 framework at all. The 2013 framework won't be referenced in this framework at all. If there are portions of that framework that need to be put in this one, that's a whole other thing. But, but do folks understand? It's just going to be a link to the California standards document, which is still current until California decides to change it.
Okay, Christina.
Okay, so yeah, I wanted to clarify because we've got now we've got two different ideas again. So we're either linking to the California standards, but I think what Rosa and I were referring to is if we put an appendix in this current framework using the grade level chapters, it's about the last 2 pages. It starts with the grade level overview. I think that's what we were referring to is using those grade level overview pages, the last 2 to 3 pages, to build an appendix within this framework. So again, I think it's 2 different things.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it was include appendix, not with a link, but with using the building an appendix from the chapter overview from 2013 frameworks. Is that correct, Christina? I can see if you want to nod.
2013, I would just say 2013 framework grade level chapters, just to give more detail.
Okay.
And I understand that a lot better too. So if we can just make sure we get that in the comment captured, just like Christina said, I think that's pretty clear. After each grade level, K through 8, in the old framework, there was 2 pages that said overview of all the standards, and it listed all of them by domain, right, by all that. Okay, and that was kind of in a table, right? And so, okay.
All right, Rosa, and then Lindsay.
No, I was just nodding big time because it's not a link to the framework itself, but giving the writers the place to reference and make their work a little easier.
Okay, thank you. Lindsay?
And I just wanted to clarify that the standards document has what I believe you guys are talking about, where that first page is like kindergarten overview and has the domains and just the descriptions. And then the next 2 pages are the actual breakdown of it. So it would just be linking, the appendix would just be the standards document, essentially.
Right. I think I can only speak for myself, and my concern is the second teachers having to go to a second place to find all the standards, whereas this, it would still be within the framework itself. That was my concern.
Yeah, just putting it in as the appendix, absolutely.
Right. Okay. So now that we have this modified, can everyone take a moment to reread 72? All right, if we would like to move forward with this idea that we've been discussing, it's a yes. If we do not, it's a no.
We have 16 yes and 3 I can live with it.
Okay, we have consensus. And I would just like to say here, that is exactly how we envision the process to work, is if it's a close vote, that the co-chairs have that ability to say, no, let's not move on, let's continue discussing it, because there's obviously, we have a split set of opinions here, let's discuss it further. And this is exactly what you did in this case, and you reached a decision. So we think that worked just fabulously.
Thank you. Okay, 73, I believe we've already addressed this above in comment number 17, but just to follow protocol. Would anyone like to speak to number 73? Okay, a yes vote would move it forward.
We have 17 yes and 2 I can live with it.
Consensus.
Okay, comment number 74. Would anybody like to speak to this? I believe Bernadette, was this your comment? Would you like to speak to it?
I think this is one from the comments in our group that we talk about, and there was a note that says to be explicit about the standards for mathematical practice. There are actually two things here. One is SMP 7 to a certain line, and I forgot that line. Lori, help me about that. But more so, yeah, that we talk, if we are to be explicit about the standards for mathematical practice, that we need to be consistent all throughout the document, because that has been the struggle of many of our educators and kept asking, how does this look like? What does this look like in the classroom? And to be very explicit is going to be helpful for everyone.
Okay, anyone else like to speak to this? So the number 51 refers back to, it's like an add-on to comment number 51. Which you asked for the line, Bernadette, it is line number 587.
Thanks, Lori.
Uh-huh. Okay. Any other comments, or anyone else want to speak to this? Okay, let's go ahead and put it to a vote, please.
We have 14 yes and 5 I can live with it.
Consensus.
Okay. Comment number 75 refers back to comment number 66. Lena, or was that you, Bernadette?
Yeah, it's Bernadette. Lori.
Sorry.
Thank you. We came up as a team or as a group as well to clarify that particular comment. But that comment actually is about the title on line 575, the phrase numbers inside numbers. It wasn't really clear to us as to what that means. But also when I read it, my attention disoriented me to a different or probably even multiple contexts. So I suggest to use what's already in there that says inside numbers inside numbers mean the structure of numbers. So, you know, instead of simplifying, we amplify the academic language, mathematically termed, to use and be consistent throughout.
Would anyone else like to speak to this? Okay, so we'll go ahead and vote to move this comment forward. Is yes, to delete it or to make it red is no.
We have one vote outstanding. Lena, if you would like to vote. We have 10 yes, 3 no, and 6 I can live with it.
Okay, we have consensus on that as well. All right, and so we've reached the bottom here, and this is a writer clarification. We received this information from the writing team, and what it is quotative was misspelled. It had an A in the middle there, quotative, and so the correction there is that this is the correct spelling, quotative. And then there were two examples that in the editing process were cut out for some reason, but we wanted to be sure that you got them. These are two examples under quotative division that should be included right there in that same section. So we wanted to just make sure that that you saw them, and if you needed had any questions or discussion on this, that you could do that at this time. place. Right, and it looks like we do have something to correct there as well. The sentence under discrete counting example, there are 12 apples on the counter. If you are place, I believe are does not need to be there. If you place apples in each bag, how many bags will you fill? So is that correct, writing team, if you could?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Are there any questions?
Anyone like?
Yes, sorry, Laura.
Go ahead.
That's right.
We're going to say the exact same thing. Any questions or anyone want to speak to this? And I'm correct that we'll see this chapter again, correct? And then we'll see it in place.
That is correct.
Okay.
All right.
I think we may be finished.
Yes, congratulations. Wow, you've made great time. And we are almost 40 minutes ahead, I think 37 to be exact. We're going to go ahead and go in just a moment to our break, and we will come back into the small groups for Chapter 7. Let me, please allow me to give you the instructions for the small group. Then we'll go on break, and then you just, at the end of the break, come back to the small groups, and that way you don't have to come back to whole group. So let me go back to the presentation here. Okay, give me just a second, please. And again, our process for this chapter will be the same process that we used this morning and that we have used before. So I will not go through all of the talking points here, but just a brief recap that in the small group, you have provided global recommendations. You have also provided recommendations on crucial content that should be added, and you have given recommendations on important or significant content that is either incorrect or incomplete. So now in the small group, you're going to see for the first time the combined recommendations. We are going to give you time to read them individually at the start of the small group, and then our facilitators will take you through the two primary questions, which are there comments that you do not agree with, that you would like to recommend they be removed? And you will discuss them and vote on them internally. And then you will also ask the questions. Are there recommendations on which I need further clarification, where I have critical questions? And those will be the ones that will be marked yellow. And you will go through all three tiers. And of course, if you have additional comments that you would like to recommend at that time, we can capture them in the Tier 4 section of the consensus document. The bit.lys are all found once again at the Math CFCC 4 _all webpage. If you would like to receive these via email, please send us an email at the Math Framework mailbox, and we will gladly send you the links. But again, this is the same mailbox at which you will find all of our documents for this meeting. Again, our groups, they will not change. They continue being the same, the alpha, the beta, and the delta groups. There they are. And our Zoom meeting links are once again the same. The alpha room has the same login information as this morning. The beta room does as well, and so does delta. If our members of the public would like these links emailed to them, please send us an email at the Math Framework mailbox. If you need additional support, we have the telephone number there. And with that, it is 1:35. We will take a 15-minute break. Please return at 1:50 to your small groups.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Constantino, on the screen, it has the break time 2:10 to 2:25 or 2:25. Do we want to leave that?
No, I'm going to adjust it right now. Yes. Thank you, Laura.
Okay. Thank you.
Lena Bradshaw,
Here.
Aaron Fraser, Aaron.
Here.
Lori Firemuth,
Here.
Lori Fury,
Here.
Lindsay Gatfield,
Here.
Crystal Gomez,
Here.
Janet Hollister,
Here.
Lisa Hogerman,
Here.
Amy Holloway,
Here.
Andrew Huffaker, Andrew Huffaker, Janie Kim,
Here.
Rebecca Pariso,
Here.
Christina Rubalcava,
Here.
Theodore Sagun,
Here.
Bernadette Salgarino,
Here.
Cole Sampson,
Here.
Rosa Sarratore,
Here.
Diane Wilson, Diane Wilson,
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. Here.
Andrew Huffaker.
Here.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. And so we are now, we are running ahead of schedule, which is great. So we're going to jump right into our whole group consensus discussion on Chapter 7, grades 6 through 8. And we will be monitoring the time. Public comment will likely take place after the whole group consensus discussion, but we'll let you know if there are any changes. But it will definitely not take place before 3:45 p.m. as listed on the agenda. I'll now turn you over to the co-chairs.
Thank you. So we are looking at not a public comment, sorry, at the whole group consensus document. And is that going to go up as part of the PowerPoint too?
Yes.
Same reaction.
I will project that, and I just wanted you to have an opportunity to share the information. Again, I know it'll be brief. Yeah, so same reaction, same procedure. And with that, we will project the document. Here we are. Back to you, Diane.
All right, thank you. I'll wait for the document to get there.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to say this again. It restricted my access on the last document, the Google Sheets that was shared. So I wasn't able to go back and access the new shared document. Can we put that link up again?
Certainly, it's this one right here. I think as soon as you start typing bit in your, yeah, we're having a projection issue on in the boardroom here, so we're trying to address it. But as soon as you type bit into your browser, it should give you the whole address, and it should say bit.ly/math CFCC4_all. Great, and you can see it there on the screen. It's the bottom address. And when you get to that folder, you're going to see all the small group folders, and then you're going to see a folder that says, I believe, whole group, and you click there. You go in there, and then you'll see the Chapter 7 document. Okay, so I will now go back here.
And Rebecca, were you able to get the document?
No, not yet. I'm trying to click on the link, but it's not working. Let me try again.
It's because there's a question mark in the link. It needs to be retyped if you're trying to click on it from the chat.
If you have a question mark in the link, replace that with a /. I believe that is where the error occurred. It should not have a question mark. I'll project this once again. It's this down at the bottom. Oh, oops, sorry. bit.ly/M ATH, capital C, capital F, capital C, capital C, the number 4, underscore, capital A, LL. And it's also in the chat now.
Great, thank you. If you have access to the document, could you just do the yes reaction, please, so that we will start once everybody's in it? Looks like we just have a few people who are still getting there. Lena, are you working on getting the document up, or are you going to use the projected one? Ah, there we go. And Cole, what about you? Do you have it? Great. All right. Thank you. All right. In looking through the whole group consensus, there are items in red, but they are all lined out, which means we do not need to discuss them as a group. And so we will start with the first yellow item, which is comment number 2. And is there someone who would like to speak to this one? Cole.
So we've actually, as a group, kind of reworded this, and so kind of tainted, which is now comment number 43, just for clarity on what I was trying to get at by that comment. So that might help in this discussion.
Okay, so just advice on the procedure here. Would it be okay if Cole withdrew comment number 2 and we only acted on comment 43, or should we act on both?
All right, so I for my own clarity, you indicated that 43 is...
So in our group, we actually redlined number 2 and then rewrote it out much more succinctly as number 43.
Right. Then you don't need to discuss number 2. You can just basically move on to 43.
Okay, but we should still go in order. So move on to number 5 and then get to 43 when we're at that part in the document.
Yes.
Okay. And we don't want to leave it unhighlighted though, because then it would automatically go forward, correct?
Just put Jen, if you could just put a note, see comment 43. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, so we will move on to comment number 5. And I can never keep track of who's LF1 and who's LF2. But is there someone who would like to speak to comment 5?
Yes, it's my comment. This is Lori Firemuth. So when I was reading through it, and I first want to say I love what I'm reading. I just felt that when I was looking at the state guidelines and it said, articulate clear, concise narrative to guidance for different users. I thought this reads great for teachers, but I wasn't sure about the guidance like for instructional materials providers and people that are going to provide resources. So that was just a comment. My group already, we talked about this, that it wasn't actually actionable. So I guess I'm fine pulling it out, if rescinding it. It was just kind of a thought in my head at the time that that the frameworks doesn't read great for people who are going to use it as guidance to write resources.
All right, so you're proposing that you remove your comment, is that correct?
Sure, I'm fine with that.
Okay, and is there anyone who objects to that? If you could raise your hand, please. All right, I see no hands, so that comment will be.
Diane, sorry,
There
this
are
is
two
Christina.
hands.
I had my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't scrolled to the top. Okay.
That's okay. I just wanted to make a note that one of the writers shared with us that there's going to be a chapter for instructional materials. So if it doesn't go in this place, that is going to be a consideration down the line for one of our chapters.
Thank you.
That is correct.
Okay. And the last hand went down. All right. So is there anyone who objects to removing it? Right. I see no hands. So number 5 will, I guess, be struck through.
That's correct.
And moving down to number 15. Is there someone who would like to speak to this comment?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and speak to it since it was my comment. Let me get to the right page here. So the reason I had written the comment was because there's a lot of emphasis placed on the importance of not skipping standards, but then it seems like this is opening the doorway, like saying go ahead and skip. So I don't know, like I felt when I read these lines here, it started to seem contradictory to the narrative that had been presented. And just thinking about if, tracking of students. So this is why I'm like, I don't know if skipping is a better word, or maybe there's another way to rephrase it. So, I mean, that's just how I read it and why I put it down. But, so that was my thinking.
Thank you. And Lindsay, then Erin.
So we highlighted this in our group because we all read it in different ways, the sentence that was actually in there. And so I felt like I understood what Lena was saying, because it's then saying, and then we're skipping to Algebra 1 or to Math 1 when they had talked about how the standards for 6, 7, and 8 should be compacted into 2 years. And so no standards would be skipped. But then I think my group, and I know Erin raised her hand, was thinking that it was still trying to get away from the skipping. And so it made sense there. So I think it just depends on how you're looking at this. But to not skip the standards is, I think, the point we're trying to get across.
Thank you. Oh, and there's not another hand raised. All right, seeing no more hands, we will vote. So if you vote yes, you are voting to turn this comment green and it will go to the writers. If you vote no, you are voting to turn this comment red and it will not go to the writers. So would you please vote now?
We have 3 yes, 11 no, and 5 I can live with it.
Do not have consensus?
All right, we're going to comment number 26. And is there anyone who would like to speak to this one? Rebecca, and then Erin.
Well, I'll start by saying my heart is not set on this. So if we strike it out, it's not a big deal. But I was reading through and I was really, really happy to see that definition of authentic. But I was just wondering if after that first sentence there, if we added in parentheses just really quick, like 2 quick examples or 1 quick example, questions that they might wonder, just to kind of guide teachers on the right path of what, the thinking.
All right, thank you. And Erin?
So, and I'm kind of, I was probably the one who brought this up in our group, but I would say that because it's a box where there's a pullout for the sidebar for the authentic in particular, that this isn't the place to address the examples of wonder. I'm not against an example of wondering, but because it's such a big thing right now, and there's been a lot of research in the last couple of years, and there's a lot of things out there about it, I just don't think this is the place for it.
All right, thank you.
It's fine with me if we just put a line through it.
Okay, so are you offering to withdraw the comment?
Yes.
All right, could you please raise your hand if you have an objection to the comment being withdrawn? And I see no hands, so that one will be struck through at the request of the author. And then we are going to comment 31. Is there anyone who'd like to speak to this one?
So, and actually, I would like to amend my comment, if that's possible. So when I had initially read this particular paragraph, I thought this spoke more to maybe like looking at just ninth grade in general. So that's why I put move elsewhere. But if it were going to stay here, I'd like to put please move elsewhere or add in something about the Math Placement Act. Because this ties directly into why we have that Math Placement Act. If it were to stay in this section.
Thank you. And anyone else who has comments or questions? Rosa.
Well, I don't know if it's a framework question, but that Placement Act was a reaction to our old CST accountability measures. Is that going to be updated to match the updating of our framework?
The Math Placement Act is a part of the guidelines. We have to ensure alignment with the Math Placement Act.
Okay, thank you. And Erin?
So with Lena's addition, I had a question about this in our group because I was like, move it elsewhere. Where are we moving it? But the adding in something about the Math Placement Act, I can see that a little bit, but can we then strike out the please move elsewhere when we're voting so that we're not voting on two things?
Yeah.
Lena, that's okay with you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any further comment on this one? All right, would you please vote if you want this comment to move forward or not, or you can use the thumbs up or I can live with it.
We have 11 yes and 8 I can live with it.
We have consensus.
All right, thank you. And so we will move to comment number 32.
Okay, Diane, if you'll allow me, as you, before you begin here, a little bit of an explanation with regard to Alpha Group's recommendations. This group cited the public comment received, so what they have done here is referenced the two of the letters that were received, and so as you progress through these items, I will toggle back and forth between the consensus document and the letters we received so that you all can see the public comment as well.
All right, thank you. And just so I'm clear on the process, we need to vote on each one of these, and it will either end up being red or green. There is no yellow in this section, correct?
That is correct. This is the first time the entire group is seeing this whole section, so yes, you would need to have a discussion and vote on each one of these.
All right, so we'll start with number 32.
There's a hand raised.
Diane, sorry to interrupt. I just had a quick question before we go into tier 4. For yellow comments, did it have to be highlighted as yellow by 2 or more groups to make it to this discussion? Because I noticed when we highlighted yellow in our group did not make it to this discussion.
No, it should have made it. Do you want to tell us which one it was?
Yeah, it was comment number 28.
I remember a group having a discussion about this and then the team not agreeing to highlight it yellow. So I don't know. What group were you?
So in our group, we highlighted it yellow.
Okay. All right. Well, then go ahead and have the discussion.
All right, so we will go to comment number 28. And is there someone who would like to speak to that one? Janet.
So it's my comment, and I was just confused when I read the recommendation about compacting the entirety of 6-8 into 2 years, because in the last framework, it explicitly said not to compact before grade 7. I don't know why. Last time it said to compact, but not to compact before grade 7. And in my mind, I'm making some connection between schools that are junior highs of 7-8 and schools that are 6-8. But I'm going to have to go back and explain to people why this recommendation is changing, because we made decisions based on the language that was in the old framework. So if it's for nobody else but myself, and I'm sure other people are in the same boat, why did it change would be a helpful thing. People did make decisions based on the last framework.
Right, thank you. And Christina, then Rosa.
So the reason I asked for this to be highlighted was I wanted to clarify, because it says add rational. So you could read that as the only rational approach. I was wondering if you meant rationale.
There you go.
That would have changed how I voted.
Please add an E.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Funny.
All right, thank you. And Rosa.
I wanted to piggyback on Janet's comment, because the last framework, it did say not to accelerate prior to 7th grade, because there's such a pivotal shift once you leave the K-5. 6th grade is huge. It completes the operations with fractions. It gets integers for the first time, as opposed to the old standards they began in 5th grade. There is so much richness in 6th that is like a huge grade that you don't want to fast forward. So that was the reason there. And she's right, we made decisions on that was the only way I could detract 6th grade in my district, which was a huge tour de force, by saying, all right, can we wait till 7th? And I got a little buy-in there. So now it's like opening it up again to compact wherever, and there goes the rationale for having a robust 6th grade before you think of any crazy fast forwarding.
Great, thank you. Erin.
So while I totally agree with what you guys are saying with, how rich 6th grade is and how important 6th grade is, it still also contradicts the fact, though, that in the last framework, not only did it say to wait to accelerate till after, till 7th grade, but it also had said the 3 to 2 instead of a 2 to 1. Well, what's happening in a lot of districts that I think is a disservice to a lot of those higher end kids is that the 3 to 2 is 7th, 8th, and Math 1, high school Math 1, all compacted into 2 years. So basically kids are skipping 7th grade is what's happening. That's the reality. And so I think that the idea here, the fact that I think is super important in this whole section that maybe needs to be highlighted for a very few exceptional high achieving students, that really that acceleration happening in middle school should be the rarity, not the norm, which is what's happening in a lot of districts. So I think that maybe because again, the whole 6 through 8 thing, if you're compacting 3 to 2, then now you're compacting high school with 7th and 8th, which again, I've seen a lot of really bad things happen to kids that were advanced that are giving up after Math 2 because they're no longer advanced, they're mediocre.
All right, thank you. And it looks like we are ready to vote. So would you please vote if you would? Oh, Rosa raised her hand.
I just wanted to volunteer Erin to take that spiel on the road, please.
All All right, so we are ready to vote. Could you please vote whether you would like comment 28 to move forward?
We have 16 yes and 3 I can live with it.
We have consensus.
All right, so we will move on to comment number 32. And I'll give you a moment to find it. It was line 685. And is there anyone who would like to speak to this one?
Oh, well, Theo, I'll let Theo speak first.
That's fine. You can jump in. I was totally okay with my original language, but I think that we had a little bit of a discussion around this idea of looking at weaknesses versus looking for assets. I think that kind of was the gist of our conversation. So this is a little bit of the wordsmithing that we landed on.
All right, thank you. And Lindsay?
So we just, what Theo was trying to accomplish in his original comment was to make it more asset-based, but I just didn't feel that the weakness and the to build on were, something that could replace the other one, because his whole thing of, there's mathematical thinking everywhere, right? Every student has some level and it's there, and then we're building off of that, whatever is there. And so it's not that it's a weakness, it's what do they have and we're building off of it. But I wanted that idea to be clear to teachers. And so when we're looking at asset-based, if we were to just say to build on, I want them to know that no matter the level of the thinking or what's there, we're always building on it, and not for them to just assume in that situation that it was status quo and then we're just moving on and building on it, if that made sense. So I didn't know if there was a different word from to build on, something between weakness and to build on. So we were trying to kind of wordsmith it to make it clear to any readers that that's what we're talking about in terms of, that really asset-based perspective, but still understanding, there may have been these misconceptions, or it may have, whatever it was, we could still build off that mathematical thinking and, be encouraging of what they came up with, but building off of it no matter where the levels of thinking are, if that makes sense. Because not everyone's teaching in like a CGI manner where they see those connections as it keeps going through. I felt like it needed to be more explicit.
All right, thank you. And seeing no more hands raised, can you please vote on comment number 32?
We have 13 yes and 6 I can live with it.
We have consensus.
All right, thank you. And comment number 33.
This is building off of comment 30 from Nancy, that the chapter should have greater emphasis on students' proportional reasoning. So I was essentially promoting an acknowledgement of some research around racial and proportional reasoning, either from Susan Lehman or Olaf Steinthor's daughter.
All right. Any other comments on this? I see no more hands. If you would please vote on comment 33. Oh, Christina raised her hand. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask if we could maybe put a note there of what comment that refers to, just to make it easier if it does go through for the writers to see what that's leading to.
All right, thank you. And then go ahead and vote on moving that comment forward, please.
Sorry, Diane. Sorry, just to be clear, this refers to which comment again, Theo?
30?
30. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Diane.
All right, thank you. And then comment 34 refers to public comment line 47. And you were going to put that up on the screen, correct?
Yes, let's, so the vote for 33 is, Denise?
So we're waiting on one vote. Andrew?
Oh, whoops, sorry, I forgot about that.
Andrew, if you could please vote.
You have 15 yes and 4 I can live with it.
Okay, we have consensus to move that forward to the writers. Okay, so now we get to the recommendations that refer to the public comment. And like I said, I will toggle back and forth. This first one has to do with the GRIP public comment, line 47, which is this letter here. And there is the public comment. And I believe it was Aaron, your recommendation is to accept the public comment as is. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we need to consider it.
All right, and I'll give a minute for everybody to find it. And then if you'd like to speak to it, you can raise your hand, please. And I see no raised hands, so we can vote on comment 34. Moving that one forward, please.
We have 14 yes, 1 no, and 4 I can live with it.
We have consensus. Okay, line 55 from the GRIP public comment.
All right, and that goes to line 55 in the document. Is there anyone who wanted to speak to this one? Yeah.
Just real briefly again, I thought that this one came up in actually 2 of the different public comments, which is why I wanted to bring it forward, because it came up in at least 2 of the letters that we received from public comment, and I think it's important to include.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment on this one? All right, would you please vote for comment 35?
We have 18 yes and 1 I can live with it.
We have consensus. So staying still with the GRIP public comment, line 645. Sorry. Right here.
And is there anyone who wanted to speak to this one? Aaron.
Again, I brought this one up. This also came up in 2 different letters from public comment, which is why I wanted to make sure that it was included. The idea that, who agrees with Jordan that Keo's expression is incorrect, instead of allowing Keo to describe her thinking. And again, that whole asset-based thing, but this came up not only in GRIP, the letter from Bruce GRIP, but also there was one other one that brought the same thing up.
Thank you. And any other comments? I see no more raised hands. Can you please vote regarding comment 36?
We have 19 yeses.
Consensus.
Right. Comment 37.
Okay. Comment 37 refers to a different public comment, and that is the public comment received from a coalition of 13 California education advocacy and research organizations, county offices, and this comment is, I'm sorry, it is comment on transformational geometry, so it is first one for chapter 7, I believe. Is that right? Yeah.
Page 3.
There it is. Thank you. Me. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
There we go. And Erin first, and then Christina.
So again, the transformational geometry, I brought this one forth. Transformational geometry is something that really is newer as of the shift in standards to both middle school and high school. And there are still a lot of teachers that are uncomfortable with what that entails and what it requires. So the idea of including transformational geometry in the vignettes is actually very poignant and should be addressed to get that connection from middle school into high school. So that's why I wanted to make sure that this one came forward.
Thank you. And Christina?
I'm going to add on to what Erin just said. Having taught geometry for a long time in the high school, that is a big shift. So I would like to see, maybe a vignette with transformational geometry, but I'd also like to see it paired with SMP 3 because I think it's developing those sort of proof-like arguments using a transformational approach because that is a big, big shift in developing arguments using transformations.
Thank you. Any other comments? Right, can you please vote on comment 37?
Diane Constantino here. Before the vote, only because I thought I heard recommendations to alter the comment as it was received from the public. I just want to be clear that if you vote on this comment, it is just what was submitted, but did you want to include anything else?
Okay, Christina, did you want to include other language?
I would like to see if you're going to include an example with transformational geometry. I'd also like the SMP called out. SMP 3 specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Does that capture?
All right, so we'll vote on the comment the way it is. I see no hands. Ms. Rosa, did you have a comment?
You know what? I'll put my hand down. Sorry. It's a little bit of an afternoon brain right now.
Bernadette, would you like to vote? We have 17 yes and 2 I can live with it.
Great, we have consensus. All right, the next comment is from the same group, and it's the very next recommendation on cultural relevance.
All right, and we can take a moment to read that. And then if you have comments, you can raise your hand, please. I see no hands raised. Give you another 10 seconds in case you wanted to. All right, can we please vote on this comment?
Yeses and 3 I can live with it.
We have consensus. Okay, public comment, or the recommendation 39 has to do with another comment in the same letter, and it's just a little ways down. Right here, ensure that vignettes highlight. This is the section right here. Oops.
And is there anyone who would like to speak to this comment? Rosa.
I'll say a little something. I'm not sure if we've already sort of addressed wanting more pertinent calling out of EL and UDL in the comments we've made in the chapter comments. And obviously the public hadn't seen our comments, so I'm not sure that we haven't already made mention of this ourselves as a team. And maybe others can chime in if we have or haven't made it enough of a highlight.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? Lori Fury, and then Janet.
Thank you, Rosa. I agree with you 100%. And I was kind of skimming through, and we don't have as many specifics as this comment does. So this comment is much more actionable than the things that we had written.
Thank you. And Janet, and then Erin.
I'm going to put my hand down because it was basically what Lori said. This is just much more specific than what we have already identified.
Thank you. And all right. Erin Fraser.
So I actually had suggested to put this in, and I agree with what they have said about that. But one of the things, I think in some of the other chapters, we had a lot more specific requests about the UDL and the EL, the stuff that's more specific. And I don't think we had as much in this chapter in our comments, which is why I wanted to make sure that this came forward.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing no more hands, if you can please vote on moving this comment forward.
We have 19 yeses.
We have consensus. And the other one is asset-based.
And we have one more from public comment.
One more, and I believe it's the one right above regarding asset-based language. Right here.
Janet?
So we were just in the middle of going through public comment when break came, and so I hadn't realized what Erin had pointed out, that this is the same as something we've already voted on. So I'm okay with taking this out.
All right. Is there anyone?
It's something we already voted on. I can't.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone who can you raise your hand, please, if you would rather this not be taken out? And I see no hands. So this comment will be removed.
I get through.
Mm-hmm. And then comment 41. comments 19 and 20 in this document were not found in this chapter. We think they belong to another chapter.
That's true.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And I don't think there's nothing to do. We take note of the observation and we leave it in there, but there's no action on your end.
Okay. And then comment 42 may be the same thing. The original comment referred to line 680, but it should have been line 679. So do we need to vote on that one, or that's just a note?
No, that you're just pointing out the so we are consistent and accurate in that, but there's really no
All right,
action.
thank
No,
you.
go right ahead.
Okay, so comment 43. Is there someone who would like to speak to this one? Cool.
This is just going back to comment 2 that we had highlighted earlier. And this is kind of what our little mini group, kind of our think tank about what I was trying to get at as far as allowing students to have options of calculators or other tools to kind of open up the math and allow them access to those higher levels and not being stuck because they don't know their basic facts, they can't do anything else. So really trying to promote that. And this is kind of what we came up as our suggested language.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to this one? I see no more hands, so can we please vote on number 43?
We have yes and 4 I can live with it.
We have consensus.
Right. And I believe comment 44 refers to what's highlighted in green in 45. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So is this one we need to vote on since we already approved it for chapter 6?
Yes, only because this is a new chapter and you would be aligning to another chapter, and I think you do need a decision on here.
All right. And Lori, you have your hand up.
I was just going to say that they're not, 44 and 45 aren't actually, you already said, aren't separate comments. 3 and 4 from this one aligned with number 5 in chapter 6. So it's just, it all means to do the same comment.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And any other comments on this one? And I see no hands, so can you please vote for this one?
We have 18 yes and 1 I can live with it.
We have consensus. And Jen, I think Lori's observation is that we don't need number 45, the number 45, we don't need to have that as a separate number. That information is all referenced in number 44. There we go.
So it should be erased?
No, that you're just what you did now, that's correct.
That wasn't you, but thank you. Okay, I'm good.
All right, and I believe that was the last comment.
Yes, that is. That is the last one. Congratulations, committee. Great work today. Excellent. We're clapping in the boardroom for you. Okay, I think we will now transition to public comment. Let me bring up that slide. Okay. We next will open our meeting We'll open our meeting for public comment. Members of the public, you are encouraged to make your comments by calling in to the number on the screen and by pressing *6 to be added to the queue. Once you're connected, we will acknowledge our commenters in the order that they called in. You will have 2 minutes for your comments, at which time we will announce time and move on to the next person. As always, please follow the rules of decorum and respect. You may also submit your comments in writing to the Math Framework mailbox at the address shown here. Written comments will be provided to the CFCC members and made available to the public, but they will not be read aloud. Before we start, we need to mention that there's a delay in the live stream. Therefore, we will allow just a few seconds for that.
Rachel, you may begin.
Thank you, committee members, writers, and CDE staff members. My name is Rachel Ruffalo, and I'm with the Education Trust West. EdTrust West is a co-signer on the public comment letter that was submitted to the committee. As our letter states, we appreciate the increased attention to ELD standards throughout the draft chapters under review for this meeting. There are 2 comments that I'd like to highlight from the written public comment. 1, ELD experts call for not only including references to the ELD standards, but to include intentional use of language development strategies. The vignettes can be strengthened by clearly articulating how teachers identify specific ELD standards to integrate and by showing what this looks like in practice. We recommend the math language routines developed by Understanding Language at Stanford and other resources from the English Learner Success Forum to make the vignettes more clearly actionable. I would also like to bring to the committee's and writers' attention a new resource that was recently developed by educators and math and ELD content specialists from throughout California and beyond. This resource is titled A Pathway to Equitable Math Instruction, Resources and Guidance to Support Black, Latinx, and Multilingual Students to Thrive in Grades 6 to 8. This resource contains 5 robust tools, each designed to address a key barrier to equity. The resources can be accessed for free at www.equitablemath.org. Thank you for your continued dedication to this work and your consideration of the public comments from stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, you may begin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bruce Grip. I'm a retired California high school mathematics teacher and an officer with the California Math Council. The comments I share are my own. I submitted in writing my comments regarding Chapter 7, so I will not take this time to read those comments. But I do wish to take this minute to thank and commend the writers of this new framework document. These acclaimed professionals face incredible challenges, including extremely short turnaround time, meeting the guidelines established by the State Board of Education, incorporating current research about teaching, learning, equity, role of language, and many other things, listening to and balancing a variety of interests and philosophies across the state, maintaining the demands of their personal and professional lives, and then advocating for all students. Thank you. I want to also thank and commend you all, the highly regarded professional members of the CFCC who provide your insightful feedback to improve the guidance for California's teachers of mathematics. I only wish this process allowed for you to share your incredible experience and ideas at the beginning of the writing process as creators and not only reviewers. Thank you for your commitment to all students and for giving your time for this important task. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comment. Well, congratulations on your work today. We have completed reviewing and having some robust conversation around two very important chapters in the revised framework. So looking ahead to tomorrow, due to your work today, you've actually shaved off time. So tomorrow we will start with the second read of Chapter 3, Number Sense, which includes both small group and whole group discussions. And in the afternoon, we will have a brief presentation by staff from the Sacramento County Office of Education on the distance learning guidance work that they are currently doing. This is intended to inform your review and discussion for Chapter 10, which is the Technology and Distance Learning in the Teaching of Mathematics chapter. And those discussions will take place after the presentation. So, unless there are any questions, and we'll look for hands that are raised, that's it for today. We hope you have a good evening. And remember, if you have any discussions with each other between now and tomorrow morning, be sure it's not at all related to the committee's work. We will meet again tomorrow just a few minutes before 9 a.m. Thank you so much.